or the bears, excuse me, are they still in control? We'll ask that question to Fundstrat's head of research, Tom Lee. He joins us right now. Tom, welcome back. So we know we're 20% off of the lows, the technical or follow definition of what a new bull market would look like. But are we really in a new bull market, given everything that we know and in some cases, everything that we don't?
Scott, we think the bull market did start in October. Every new bull market is always met with deep skepticism. We know that happened in 2020, and we know that happened in 2009 when even as late as October of 2009, people were calling for new lows and pointed to the lack of earnings recovery. But I think a few things that viewers have to keep in mind is there's been 8 months now of rising trend, and the S&P's solidly above the 20-day, and now the 200-day moving average is rising again. There's been an expansion of breadth, and historically, since 1900, so 125 years of data, earnings bottom 11 to 12 months after the market. So I sense that the S&P earnings revisions will start to bottom in the next 6 months, and that will confirm that the bottom was October.
I guess the obvious comeback would be, how can we possibly, be in a new bull market when so many areas of the market are not that strong? And I think we know exactly what we're talking about. You take out the Magnificent Seven, however you want to describe big cap tech plus a few others, it's not that pretty of a picture, Tom. So how can we really say we're in a new bull market when so much is not participating in it?
That's true, Scott. I mean, if someone was an equal weight investor, they may not be feeling the same upside. But I think one thing that we point out to our clients is that the drags in the market this year have been the defensive sectors like utilities, healthcare, staples. That's really where you have awful breadth. And actually, those are among the most expensive sectors. So if someone was just looking at cyclical groups like tech, discretionary, industrials, materials, they're actually meaningfully in a bull market because the participation of those groups is much greater. And I think from an index perspective, I know people are trying to discount the index, but just keep in mind, if you take the top 2% of companies, or like the MSCI Global or the Euro stocks or Japan, they're often over 35% of the market cap. In the US, that number is like 25%. So the US isn't as concentrated as other country indices. And in the US, we've had 2 quarters of consecutive quarterly gains, now on our track for the third. It's never happened in the middle of a bear market. So I just think too many signs point to this being a bull market led by the large caps because there's fundamental drivers, and now expansion of breadth is what we can expect going forward.
I think the opposite is that, some would suggest, well, too few signs point to it relative to the number of stocks that are actually in what you would even consider a bull market. I mean, at what point, I guess on that note, do some of these other areas, and let's just talk about them, healthcare down year to date, staples down year to date, energy down year to date, industrials barely higher year to date, utilities down year to date. At what point do some of the sectors that have lagged need to catch up to the real winners?
I think it's a great question. One, I just would really recommend the viewers not be overweight these defensive groups, energy not being defensive, but the other ones are all defensive. But I think next week is the key moment because, we have a Fed that's been less hawkish, but has not necessarily said that they agree financial conditions should be easing. And they pause. So I think next week is almost one of these big comeuppance moments, because if the Fed essentially acknowledges that there's been progress on inflation, we have a June pause and maybe even a July pause, I think it's going to be a green light for some of those groups to finally get a bid. And I think it'll be led by groups levered to easing financial conditions. That's industrials, discretionary. It's not necessarily great for utilities or healthcare, but as you point out, Scott, discretionary and industrials aren't up 12%. They're up 5, 6, 7%.
Yeah. We have the shot up on the screen, as all of you can see what our breaking news is. We're waiting on the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, to make a statement regarding the charges against the former president. And we're going to go live to the Justice Department when Jack Smith does appear. We've already been given a 2-minute warning, so we expect that will take place momentarily. In fact, you see the special prosecutor and his team approaching the podium, in which we're going to hear the charges and the counts against the former president, 37 counts in all. Let's listen.
Good afternoon.